Phrases like man up, boys and girls and let's go guys have become a thing of the past at a Birmingham primary school.
Yes, children as young as just 3 years old at Anderton Park Primary School have been taught to reject the use of what teachers consider sexist language. Is that a little early to be teaching toddlers about sexism? Or do they need to be told at 3 not to say, let's go, guys? We're joined by head teacher Sarah Hewitt-Clarkson, who thinks no age is too young to start educating children on this, and journalist Nana Akua, who thinks the idea is ridiculous. Good morning to you both. Sarah Hewitt-Clarkson, this is what's happening at your school. These children are ever so young, aren't they, to start being told that it's not OK even to say, hello, boys and girls.
Well, good morning. Thank you for this really important debate. Yeah, let's just fast forward a little bit for when the children get a bit older, just to see why this is so important, because it's a tiny part of a huge jigsaw. We've seen in the last year the biggest ever rise in child abuse, in grooming, for example. And if our boys and girls grow up and in school we don't challenge these kind of sexist language and boys are told man up, grow a pair, don't cry, boys don't cry, it's very, very damaging for them. And abusers later on, potentially in life, or bullies in school, or people they walk past on the way home on the way home from school, will also use this fear. And fear is the biggest weapon that abusers have. And if boys are told, boys aren't afraid, boys don't get scared, boys don't talk about their feelings, then where are they going to go when they are afraid? They are afraid, and they are.
Sarah, I think that over the last sort of, I'd say 10 or 15 years, and I've got boys that are teenagers now. I think that things like that, phrases like that, are being phased out. Phrases like man up, or boys don't cry, boys don't play with dolls, boys don't wear dresses, all that sort of stuff. But the idea that using a phrase like boys and girls as good morning boys and girls to a class that has boys and girls in, can you just explain the issue around that specifically? Yeah, sure.
I mean, that is absolutely tiny, and of course we use the words boys and girls, but it's just, if you just think about it for a minute, it's a slightly strange way of dividing a group of people, and just good morning everyone is far more inclusive, and there may be a couple of children in schools who actually don't really identify with being a boy or a girl, so good morning everyone is just a far more inclusive way of saying everyone, instead of choosing a division that is one particular characteristic of your person. There are 9 protected characteristics in law, and you wouldn't divide a room in a different way. So it's just it's not banned. It's just it's just a way of greeting people. Good morning, everyone. That is just far more inclusive.
And what happens if a child or a teacher does use language like this?
Well, because this is just part of our culture at school. It has been for years, so it's nothing new for us. So if for example, we get a visitor in who's talking to our children about whatever, and they go, morning, guys. Some of our girls may say, oh, I'm not a guy. We don't really use that phrase at school. And that's another tiny example. But actually 50% of the population are not guys. And it's just a phrase we used to mean everyone, but actually it doesn't mean everyone. And if you use it in the singular, so if I was introducing somebody to you, Susanna, and I said, oh, let me introduce you to this guy, Susanna, it doesn't sound quite right. Or if we used a female word, like morning, ladies, people would go, hold on a minute, I'm not a lady, or are they joking? So if you just flip it...
But Sarah, hasn't that use of that word, guys, become gender neutral? I mean, it's not specifically about a boy or a girl. It's everybody, isn't it? Isn't it exactly what you want? It's inclusive.
Well, it has become. We're used to hearing it, but actually, as I said, if you unpick it and turn it into the singular, I'm not a guy. Susanna's not a guy, and so it's just become one of those tiny little parts of this jigsaw, which is kind of saying, a male word is meaning for everyone. And as I said, if you flip that into the female, people would think you were joking, or no, hold on a minute, that can't be right. Okay. So it's just a tiny.
I've seen Nana Akua there in Hertfordshire, raising your eyebrows, shrugging your shoulders, putting your hands up. Nana, what do you make of this? The idea that we shouldn't be dividing classrooms of children into girls and boys, and we should just use inclusive language, but that inclusive language can't use words like guys.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I mean, I'd be very worried if this woman was teaching my kids. It's absolutely ridiculous. What I think we are doing here now is dissecting language in the most clinical form and then creating a generation of wallflower kids who are literally listening for an offence. I go to schools and I lecture in schools and I talk to the kids. Could you imagine if I went to her school and said, "Good morning, guys"? I mean, it is getting to the point where we are losing a grip here. We need to be looking at the context of language, and that's what I'll be teaching my children. Things said in a certain way in different contexts mean totally different things. To say "good morning, guys" is, if you're actually seriously picking that apart, then I feel that perhaps your energy is in the wrong place. Really, we should be teaching the kids context of language and how to use a language that is non-offensive in a context. If you take something out of a context and dissect all the bits and pieces, you'll find yourself in a black hole. Okay, so let's take the word mankind. Does she allow that? Because it says man at the beginning, but guess what? It's
let's
about
ask
human.
Sarah
What
here
about
at
the word
Clarkson.
human? What about the word woman?
So if you're not allowed to say "man up" or "guys" or "boys," but where does that stop? That's really the question.
Well, of course we're allowed to say boys, and it's not that we're not allowed to say things. It's just that we would expect people in an education setting to challenge these things, because if they go unchallenged, then schools become part of the drip feed of these labels we put on boys or girls. That boys are strong, girls are weak. Boys stand up for themselves, girls do what they're told. Boys have to look a certain way, girls have to look pretty. So schools can't be part of that, and they need to just be part of the challenge. And like
Nana,
anything in schools,
I just want to. So Nana, so here's where I am on this. I can understand that saying things like "boys are strong," "boys don't cry," girls, girls should play with dolls, boys aren't allowed to. There was
Girls
one
should just look pretty.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that sort of stereotyping, which might lead to children thinking, "Oh, there's something wrong with me if I feel a bit sensitive if I'm a boy," or "there's something wrong with me if I want to do skipping." That I can understand the challenge. I just wonder whether also at the age of 3, it's quite early to be teaching children to be worried about some of this.
Also, I think what she's doing is conflating different things and putting them all together. So saying things like "boys don't cry" is not the same as calling a group of people "okay, guys," or these are totally different things. Okay, so these are telling people that if you're this type, you shouldn't have that sort of emotion. And the other side is simply just a language of addressing a group of people that has actually nothing to do with what they do in that group, whether boys or girls cry. So for me, the point of it is that what I think is happening here is adults are projecting their own levels of insecurity or their own interpretations of certain language onto the children who don't actually see that. And actually, Susanna, you said it in your intro at the beginning when you said what teachers find sexist. And that's the point here. Some teachers will find "hello guys" sexist, others won't. There is not, the language that you're pulling apart, there is not a clear divide. Calling boys and girls or girls and boys, if there's some people in the class that you're saying don't identify as male or female, so you're saying a 3-year-old already in their mind is thinking, "I don't know whether I'm a male or a female, I don't identify with either, please don't call me that." I think you are just dissecting the language in such a manner that is actually counterproductive, and no one will ever learn anything because everyone will be offended by absolutely everything.
One last question for you, and I think this is a question that lots of people will be thinking this morning that Kev's made on Twitter. And he said, we talk a lot about kids these days having to grow up so fast, the advent of social media, the advent of the internet, and they're just growing up too quickly. And as Kev said, can we just let the kids grow up before imposing language rules on them? Kids these days are not allowed to be kids anymore before the indoctrination starts. I think it's Susanna's first question was, and a lot of our viewers are saying, this is just too young for them to have to try and comprehend what it is that you're getting the nuance of the language. And actually, can they just run around as 3 and 4-year-olds?
And I just would add to that as well, in that you get the children to make posters where they call out what teachers or or speakers say. "I'm not a guy." I mean, it just doesn't feel very... I know what you're trying to do is healthy, but I'm just not sure that children should have that responsibility at that age.
Okay, so what we're talking about here is actual safety, is psychological safety, and children should just be children and growing up. They shouldn't have labels pushed onto them about what girls and boys should do. And we've been talking about this for so long at school with all aspects of equality. I don't think we would leave unchallenged a little one who said, oh, I don't want to play with that doll because that doll's a certain colour or whatever. Of course we'd challenge that gently. We'd say, no, that, we have toys of all different colours. So it's just part of a spectrum of dealing with that. I mean, the thing, we did a thing with posters a few years ago, and a lot of our children were saying in it, and we just made a bit of fun out of it, and we made some things with the word in it with a cross through it, and it kind of, petered out within a few months. So children just will often say, I'm not a guy, but those are the older children. The little ones wouldn't say that. For the little ones, it's just, of course, the girls can go and play in the building yard and fill the wheelbarrow with sand and move it across. Of course, people can do whatever they want. Childhood should be free of labels and free of harmful stereotypes that they get from everywhere. And at least in school, staff should be challenging gently those things so that they don't grow up thinking boys can't cry and girls must look pretty.
OK. We're going to have to leave it there, I'm afraid, but thank you very much for joining us. That's Sarah Hewitt-Clarkson, who's the head teacher of
Dana, you were just talking. Sorry, you have the final word on this.
I was just simply saying that she's conflating two things that aren't the same. Saying boys don't cry is not the same as trying to extract boys and girls as a phrase from the language of children because you're worried it might make them sexist. And I think that's important. And adults shouldn't really project their own insecurities or beliefs onto the children at this age. Just let them be kids and leave them alone.
Last word for you then, Nana. Thank you very much for joining us as well. Thanks to both of you this morning.